my opinion, if you're a woman and you're planning on having children ever, you should watch this video. A trial just started, which in my opinion is going to be one of the most controversial trials that we will see this year. The case of Lindsay Clancy is one that has a lot of people divided because this is a mother of 3 who killed her children. And the question isn't, did she do it or did she not? The question is, were these premeditated murders or was this postpartum psychosis? There's a lot to this case and we're going to break it down together. But that being said, we're talking about a lot of heavy topics, including children, mental health struggles, and postpartum depression. So if you don't think that you are in the right state of mind to listen to something like this, skip this video and I will see you in my next one. Take care of yourselves. I mean it. I love you. Also keep in mind, this is an ongoing case. Lindsay Clancy has pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder and she is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. So before January of 2023, Lindsay Clancy was the type of person that people naturally gravitated towards for comfort. She was the kind of person who dedicated her entire professional career into bringing new life safely into this world. She was a labor and delivery nurse working at Massachusetts General Hospital, where she had worked for 9 years after completing a nursing program. Originally, though, she was born in Connecticut in 1990. In 2016, she married Patrick Clancy and the couple settled in Duxbury, Massachusetts. Patrick and Lindsay had 3 children together. Cora, born in December of 2017, Dawson, born in September of 2019, and Callan, born in May of 2022. 3 kids in 5 years, making it a full house, a full life, a happy one, or at least that's what it seemed like. Because from the outside looking in, the Clancy family did look like a picture-perfect family. They really did. A young, successful, loving family doing everything right. And literally every single person close to Lindsay says that becoming a mother was her greatest accomplishment. We know that she loved kids and helping kids because welcoming them safely into this world was her literal job. But when she eventually had kids of her own, they quickly became the center of her universe. A family member close to them described them as, quote, just beautiful, beautiful children, well cared for. They were just beautiful. That's it. They had a beautiful life. She was not wrong. They did. But then in the months following Callan's birth in May of 2022, something began to happen to Lindsay Clancy mentally, internally. And the medical system, despite repeated attempts to address it, would catastrophically fail to intervene until it was too late. Lindsay had experienced postpartum anxiety after the birth of her second child, Dawson, back in 2019, and it was very difficult and it was very heavy and she really had to learn how to navigate it. But then after Callan's birth in 2022, what she experienced then was categorically different because that, although similar, felt like a worsening decline that was visible to everyone around her and that she herself recognized as a psychiatric emergency that required immediate medical attention. After his birth, Lindsay did not feel well mentally. She ended up extending her maternity leave from the hospital because she just felt too overwhelmed and anxious and she felt like she couldn't manage it only through ordinary coping. Because it felt like it was going from bad to worse. Lindsay was experiencing severe insomnia, meaning nights of no sleep that obviously only made things worse, blurring the buffer that exists between a rational mind and one that is significantly unstable. And let me read you the definition of postpartum psychosis before we keep going, because this is not something that is talked about nearly as much as it should be, and it is not as common as, say, for example, postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression, but it is still something that I feel every single person should know about. And I'm not saying that Lindsay had this for a fact because she wasn't diagnosed with it, but I want to read you the definition and then tell you what she was going through, and you can compare it to the actual definition of the world. I just want you to know what I'm talking about. So, postpartum psychosis is a rare but severe medical emergency that affects a woman's sense of reality, usually starting within the first few days to weeks after childbirth. It involves sudden, extreme symptoms such as hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, rapid mood swings, and profound confusion. So what Lindsay was feeling felt a lot like that, to the point that her and Patrick made the decision to consult a postpartum mental health specialist to ask for help. Lindsay began reaching out to different medical providers on more than one occasion to describe these symptoms that she was experiencing because they felt like they were escalating faster than any of the treatments that she had been prescribed could address. In December of 2022, she allegedly told Patrick that she felt like she needed to be hospitalized for her mental health. On January 1st of 2023, she was admitted to McLean Hospital, one of the most respected psychiatric institutions in the country. But she was discharged after just 5 days. The discharge came with an adjustment to the medications that she had already been taking because they obviously didn't seem to be working. So a doctor there advised her to stop taking 2 or 3 different medications that she had been prescribed and instead prescribed her an antidepressant for sleep. Around this time, she had been prescribed more than 13 different medications in a matter of 4 months. We also learned that at some point, Lindsay also began going to an outpatient program 5 days a week to help with her mental state, and her husband and her close family members were all in the loop and trying to support her as best as they could. Lindsay's defense attorney, Kevin Reddington, would later argue that this revolving door of different doctors, different medications, failed to recognize that her symptoms were not just anxiety, but instead undiagnosed possible bipolar disorder and postpartum psychosis, which he stated ultimately triggered a catastrophic psychiatric break. According to Lindsay's defense, days after she was released from the hospital, she began experiencing hallucinations that were telling her to harm her children. And she also did keep a journal for herself in which she described her mental health struggles. So I assume that that's also something that's going to be brought up in court. But in her head, from what her attorney has stated, it sounds like Lindsay knew 100% that she was not okay. But maybe she didn't quite understand why, because she kept asking for help left and right. She kept getting different medications. Nothing was helping. She kept having these horrible thoughts, but she didn't know what they meant. Because fact of the matter is, when you are in that deep of a mental state, you're not gonna, like, as aware as you might think that you simply are not in the right state of mind to comprehend what you're actually feeling. It's just not gonna happen no matter how much you want it to. And she did ask for help, but there is still that chance that she was not in a stable enough mindset to actually realize that she was in real danger and that her kids were in real danger because of her. Or again, perhaps she had just told so many people so many things over so many months that she no longer believed that anyone would actually help her. Who knows? But what we do know is that she was not officially diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, and Lindsay would go on to commit the worst crimes imaginable. This is a quote from her attorney, quote, "This family was on the road to hell and unfortunately is not coming back. Her husband actually went to the doctor the week before to ask for help and said that you're turning her into a zombie. It was just brutal, a brutal existence that they were living." Her parents were aware of this. They were trying to help out the husband as well. Her husband was never told that he shouldn't leave her alone. I like to think that in this case, it's justice for Lindsay as well. I don't think anyone needs to be lectured about the horrific loss of 3 beautiful babies. So let's go through the events that actually took place the day of the crime, and then it's going to start to make sense why some people look at this and think that this was premeditated, calculated, and not a result of psychosis. So on the morning of Tuesday, January 24th of 2023, Lindsay Clancy took her 5-year-old daughter, Cora, to a pediatrician for an appointment. She talked to the receptionist, the nurses, the doctor, and according to them, she seemed completely fine and normal, and there was no reason to be concerned. When she got home, her 5-year-old daughter, Cora, and her 3-year-old son, Dawson, spent some time outside playing in the snow. She took some pictures of the children playing, and she sent them both to her husband, Patrick, and her mother, still, according to them, showing completely normal behavior and texting normally. That afternoon, she was home with the kids. Patrick, her husband, was also home, but he was working from his home office in the basement. Patrick had been monitoring Lindsay's condition closely for months, but that day, according to him, things had appeared to be shifting slightly back to normal. It was the first day in a while that he felt like Lindsay was actually having a good day and appeared to be doing better than usual. Patrick has stated that he believed that although things were still rocky after being released from the hospital stay, he said that he really started to think that they were over the hardest part and they were only going to go upwards from here on out. According to prosecutors, at 4:13 p.m., Lindsay used Apple Maps on her phone to see how much time the drive would take from her house, their house, to a specific restaurant. At 4:53 p.m., she then texted Patrick asking if he could pick up dinner from said restaurant, saying that she hadn't cooked anything that day because it was a long day. The prosecution believes that this was an unusual request because usually when the family got takeout, they usually ordered from a restaurant that was closer to their house. But that said, the restaurant that Lindsay was asking Patrick to go and pick up food from was a restaurant that they had been to in the past. She also ended up asking him to stop to pick something up at CVS. At 5:15 p.m., Patrick Clancy left their house, leaving Lindsay home alone with the 3 children. 18 minutes later, at 5:33 p.m., Lindsay misses a call from Patrick. She calls him back 1 minute later at 5:34 p.m., and they talk for less than 30 seconds. He was calling because he was unsure of what exactly she needed from CVS, so they clarified, and then they ended the call. Patrick has said that it did sound like Lindsay was in the middle of something, but other than that, she seemed to be completely normal on the phone. When Patrick gets home, he gets back home from CVS, and from picking up the food, he walks into the house. It's completely silent. He does not see Lindsay. He does not see the children, so he makes their way to their bedroom, but the door is locked. He's able to get it open. He walks in, he sees blood on the ground, notices the window is open, rushes back downstairs and out to the backyard where he finds Lindsay lying on the ground. He frantically begins asking her, "What did you do? What did you do?" To which Lindsay replied to by saying that she had jumped out of the window in an attempt to self-exit. He calls 911 and he can be heard on the phone asking, "Where are the kids?" Lindsay then tells him that they're in the basement. On the 911 call, Patrick can be heard rushing into the house downstairs to the basement, yelling out for his kids. And then all you hear is horrible, loud screaming into the phone. The 911 calls have not been released to the public. They've only been described, but we can assume that those are going to be played in courtroom at trial. The paramedics arrived to their house just after 6 p.m. and very quickly they got to all 3 children. They were unresponsive with obvious signs of trauma, and all 3 were immediately rushed to the hospital. At the hospital, 3-year-old Dawson and 5-year-old Cora were pronounced dead. 8-month-old Callan was in critical condition and he had to be flown to Boston Children's Hospital, but heartbreakingly, just days later, he lost his life as well. Lindsay Clancy had strangled all of her 3 children with exercise bands. In fact, all 3 children still had them wrapped around their necks when Patrick, their father, found them. Afterwards, she had cut both of her wrists before jumping out of the 2nd-story window in an attempt to self-exit. She suffered a lot of injuries, but she did survive. She was taken to the hospital where doctors determined that she was paralyzed from the neck down, and then she was charged for the murders of her 3 children. When Patrick spoke to the authorities at the hospital that day, he had a look of pure devastation on his face for obvious reasons. And he told authorities what I told you, that Lindsay appeared to have been having one of the best days. He just could not understand how something like this could have happened on a day that Lindsay seemed to be happy and hopeful. Lindsay had to stay at the hospital to deal with her injuries, but when she got a chance to try and explain herself to Patrick on a phone call, what she told him was that after he left the house that day, she heard a voice speaking to her. It told her that now was her last chance. It told her that she had to hurt her children to get rid of them and then get rid of herself. Quote, "I lost all control. My body started acting without any control on my part. I was just following commands, all action. This voice demanded action." Another important thing to note is what authorities found when they got a search warrant to go through different electronic devices from the home, because allegedly they found search history from Lindsay researching different ways to kill. So hearing that, it is understandable why people are so divided on this case, because you can look at it in the way of she knew what she was doing. She sent her husband that far away on purpose. She did the math to make sure that she would have enough time to do what she did, and then she tried to self-exit because she didn't want to face the consequences, because she was mentally stable enough to understand that what she did was wrong. But I don't know, you guys. I see both sides. I understand both sides. I want to know what you guys think. I 100,000,000% think that she was absolutely not in a sane state of mind, and I think that it's horrific that she asked for help and tried to get help so many times, doing everything in her power to try and get better, but she was just not given the help that she needed. In the following days, Patrick Clancy experienced a pain that no one should ever have to go through. He felt like he was left with nothing. His children were gone. His wife was hospitalized, paralyzed, and now facing murder charges. The house on Summer Street where he had raised his loving family was now a crime scene. And once the news broke, this very quickly spread all over social media. People were talking about it, immediately putting Lindsay Clancy into categories of either a monster or a victim. And in the middle of all of that, Patrick Clancy did something that kind of took everyone by surprise, because he asked the public to extend his wife Lindsay grace. He posted a message to the community urging for them to try to understand what happened to Lindsay and to not hate her. He did file for divorce, but he also stated, quote, "I wasn't married to a monster. I was married to someone who got sick." And Patrick made it very clear that he forgave Lindsay for what she did, saying that she was a loving wife, a mother, a nurse, and saying that nothing matched her intense love for our kids and dedication for being a mother. It's all she ever wanted. Patrick also filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the providers who treated Lindsay, arguing that their negligence, their failure to recognize a psychiatric emergency, was a proximate cause of his children's deaths. So jury selection for Lindsay's trial began Monday, I believe it was. And like I said in the beginning, this is not a case of did she do it or did she not do it. It's a case of whether she was mentally sane at the time of the crime or in a psychiatric break. Prosecutors will argue that this was premeditated, calculated, and done on purpose, saying that Lindsay acted, quote, with deliberate, premeditated, and extreme atrocity and cruelty. And her defense will argue that she should be found not guilty by reason of insanity. So we'll have to see how this plays out. No matter what your thoughts or feelings are about this case, please remember that 3 beautiful lives were taken way too soon. Just be mindful of that, and please keep it respectful in the comments. Yeah, it breaks my heart. It's one of those cases that is heartbreaking no matter what angle you see it from. But that is all for me today. Thank you for spending time with me today. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.